Hi, I'm Kristen, and this is Scrap Fabric Love. And today I am batch sewing the simplest drawstring gift bags ever. You can make these any size, you don't have to do any measuring, and once you know how to do it, you can make these in less than 5 minutes easy, which is why they're perfect for batch sewing. The other thing we don't have to do with this method of making this drawstring gift bag is feed the drawstring in. Yes, it has one, has a drawstring, has a casing, but we're not going to feed them in after the fact. We're going to do it while we're sewing them. So it's going to make it that much quicker, and we're just going to speed through them. So you can follow along with this tutorial and just make one bag. But today, as I said, I'm batch sewing these. So I do have another tutorial on the channel for a fabric gift bag that's maybe a tiny bit fancier, even though it's still simple and it's still no measure. It's one of my subscribers' favorites. I still use it. And in that video, I'll show you how you can kind of guesstimate the size you need for particular gifts. So if you know what gift you're giving and you want a nice drawstring gift bag, you're only making one or two or a handful, go check out that video. You might like it. This one is about quickly making a whole bunch of gift bags. Maybe we don't know what we're gifting yet. We just want a stash of bags we can pull from on Christmas Eve or before someone's birthday and just shove something inside. That's the idea. So it's a very good stash buster. So I've got a mix of fabric in here. Most of it is not Christmassy, so that I can use it year round and just have this stash of bags. But of course, if you use Christmas fabric, these are perfect for holiday gifting and saving money year after year on wrapping paper. So let's get to making these bags. Okay, so what do we need to make our gift bags? So you need a piece of fabric that we can fold in half. And when you fold it in half, you're kind of happy-ish with the size of that as a gift bag.
As a general rule of thumb, if you start with a rectangle and you fold it to make your bag, you're going to get a square-shaped gift bag. If you start with a square and you fold it, you're going to get kind of like a taller rectangle, if that makes sense.
A little bit of seam allowance is going to happen around here, and I'm going to have my casing up here. But this is kind of two hands. That seems like a good size for a bag. So this can literally be any size. So here is a rectangle that I pieced out of some tartan scraps from the scrap bag I got last week. And I'm gonna fold it in half and make a bag. And again, that'll be a smaller bag than this, but the method will be the same. So I can fit something smaller in there, like some bath bombs or something like that. The other option, if you don't have big, long pieces, is to have a front and a back that are the same size.
So if the fabric you have to use up isn't long enough to fold over and make a bag that's a good size for you, then just get two equal sizes, piece them together, and that's your one piece to be folded over. Because of the fabric I had, I did a lot of this joining ahead of time, so I'll show you that in a second.
So just two sides, squares, rectangles. You can add embellishments on the fabric before we put it together in a bag to make it fancier. You can do all sorts. So within that 5-minute estimate I gave you was the piecing of these into one big long rectangle. So it'll be similar to this one when I'm done, right? It's gonna be one long piece that we're then gonna work with. So if you already have a big long piece, your bags are gonna be even quicker than mine. We also need some ribbons of varying lengths. This is my pile of ribbon messness that I'm gonna use. It can be anything. It could be a selvage edge. It could be a seam from something. This is from an old pair of curtains, or it could just be straight old ribbon. Whatever you have, you can use.
As a general rule of thumb for your drawstring, you want it to be the length of your piece of fabric when it's unfolded, plus one hand on either end.
First of all, I'm going to take this pile over here, and I'm going to take my pairs of fabric that are the same size as each other, and I'm going to sew them right sides together with a 1/4-inch seam down here. So I'm going to, for this whole pile, for my batch sewing, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go sew. So I'm going to go prepare all of these, and I'll come back. So however many bags you're doing, whether it was one rectangle to start off with, or you've joined a front and a back, you're gonna stack them up, wrong side up. So this is my pile of fabric for my gift bags.
In the first step, we're going to fold over both sides of our fabric piece. And the reason we're doing that is that it's going to hide the raw edges where the drawstring comes out of the casing. So if you're not bothered by that, you can technically skip this step.
The other difference, which is worth pointing out, is if you don't do this step, you're going to get a drawstring where when you pull it, it sits and comes out the side like this, like a normal drawstring bag like you would expect. If you do this step, it's going to work the same. You're still going to pull it like a drawstring, but the strings are going to want to go the other way. They're going to be kind of facing in-ish, right? So you do your little bow here, and your bow is going to be kind of like on top of the bag rather than beside it, if that makes any difference to you. So you choose if you want to do this step or not. There are timestamps in the video description if you want to skip past this step and go to the next one.
For this step and all the other ones in the bag, I'm going to be showing you two versions. One where all the raw edges are hidden inside your bag, so it's nice and professional looking inside, and then a quicker version where we don't care about raw edges inside our bag.
Okay, so this bit is the same whether it's loads of bags or one bag. So here's one bag. And again, don't worry about the seam. If you've just got one rectangle, that's good too. What we're focusing on is the two ends. So when we fold it, our drawstring is going to come out both of these ends. So we're going to do this for this side and for this side. So you can just fold it in like this, which is going to be your easiest, right? And that will mean you'll have no raw edges for your drawstring casing, but you will have some raw edges when you look inside your bag. So if you've already done something like this, where there's already a raw edge here, you could enclose the seam here, you know, if you don't want a raw edge inside your bag, sort of fold it and stitch. But if you're not planning on doing that, then you've already got a raw edge in your bag. So then you might as well not worry about this one either. So then all we're doing is folding over. There's no set measurement. I will use something like my finger, and then I will just stitch it down. Okay, so the other option, if you have one that's one big piece, so you currently don't have any raw edges inside your bag and you'd like to keep it that way, then what you're going to do is fold it maybe a little less than we were doing before, so not quite a finger, and then fold it again so that your raw edge is closed. And then we're going to stitch right on this fold line, and that's going to enclose that raw edge. Okay, so again, you don't have to do this step at all. If you don't want to, you can just leave these edges raw. You might have a few threads where the ribbon comes out of your drawstring, but you might not. Depends on your fabric, okay? And this step, believe it or not, is inside the 5-minute estimate for the bags for an individual bag. So even with this, it's still super quick. If you want to skip this, again, we're whizzing even faster, okay? And since I'm doing a bunch at a time, I'm just going to keep going. And my principle, as I said, with these ones is if it's already got a raw edge inside, I'm going to just do this because I'll have raw edges in my bag. All of this is inside the bag. Nobody's looking that closely. They're looking at the present, right? And if I don't already have a raw edge, I'm going to keep it that way and hide my seams, okay? So this is how I'm doing it.
Whichever method you've chosen, you're going to do this for both ends of your bags, and you're always going to be sewing with the wrong side of the fabric facing up for this step and for all the other steps in this tutorial. If you want to try batch sewing like I am, which is basically just making a bunch of these bags at once, all it means is that we're going to do one step at a time. So we would go through all of the fabric pieces that we want to make into bags and do those edges before we move on to the next step. And what that means is that you don't get lost where you are if you have to go off and do something else. So I rarely sit here and do one step the whole way through. Normally I'm going away, doing something for the kids, maybe putting dinner in the oven, coming back doing 5 minutes, and so on like that until the step is finished. And if you are batch sewing, the other thing I would recommend is using a thread that matches all of the bags you want to make, so you don't have to be changing your thread. And if you don't have a bobbin sensor on your machine, make sure you're checking your bobbin regularly, because when you're chain piecing like this, you can sometimes be caught out and not notice that your stitches aren't actually forming because your bobbins run out. So do make sure and check.
So when you have your fabrics stacked up like this, you've done your two sides or decided you're not doing that, either way. You just at this point need to know which end is up. So if you have any directional fabric or anything like that, pick one side of your pile to be the top, and then you know which one you're pulling from. So for me, these are all going to be the top edge of my bags up here, even though these are all very, very different sizes. But so I have it like this stacked beside me, and I am now going to add the ties and the casing at the same time. Okay, so here's one. I'm going to do the simple way. We're not worrying about raw edges because it's just inside a bag, right? And this edge is going to be the top of my bag. It's not cut super straight. I'm not worried about that. It's still going to be fine. So I am going to put a hand's width of ribbon for the start of my bag. And then I'm going to kind of make sure it goes all the way along the top edge, and then another hand's length there. And then I'm going to trim it here. And that is usually long enough for me. That's all I need to do. Right. Now, what we're doing is don't worry about where it's placed because this is going to be movable. So don't worry about how much is hanging this way or whatever, right? But you want to make sure it's coming out the other end, okay? You don't want to end up having to fish for it. That would sort of defeat the point of doing the casing and the drawstring this way, right? So what we're going to do is just fold the top edge over. So this is the inside of our bag. And we are going to try and put the ribbon right up to the fold as much as we can, right? So the best way I have to do this is I will just fold it over here at the top. I will get it started. So I'm doing a 1/4 inch from the raw edge here, and I'm going to back stitch. Right now, I'm going to take one pin. You can use more pins if you want. I only use one. And right up here beside, I'm going to pin through the bag and the ribbon. And what that's going to do is that my ribbon cannot slide through this way. Do you see I can't tug it out this way while I'm sewing by mistake. And it makes it easier to kind of hold on to it, hold it taut and make sure it's pushed against this fold. Hopefully that makes sense. This one's kind of long. If you've got a shorter bag, then it's much easier to just hold on to the end and sew. If you've got a longer one, then just kind of tuck it up there. You can find something to measure. So you see, I've really cut terribly. So I'm gonna measure on this line. There's a sort of a pattern line here and go, that's a little wider than my finger. So that's what I'm going for. And I'm not gonna worry about this extra scraggly bit. It's just gonna be inside my bag. And so then as I go, I'm just gonna kind of hold the fold and pull it taut and just try and be sewing roughly along the same place. It's not gonna make a huge difference if you waver. It's a drawstring bag. It's gonna get cinched. No one's gonna see that. I know that you're gonna be worried about getting the ribbon caught under your sewing machine, but if you just take it a little slower or hold it taut, it really won't. Obviously, if you're using a thicker ribbon, you're gonna fold this over more to give yourself more space. Hope that makes sense. But you just wanna make sure the amount you're folding it over gives you enough, almost like enough space again as the ribbon so that you're not gonna catch it, right? And so I just hold it taut like that. And once you get into the hang of this, it goes quick, quick, quick. And even if you do catch a tiny bit, you don't have to unpick anything because it will still cinch. You'll just have a little place where it doesn't move. It's not a big deal. We're trying not to do that, but if it happens, not the end of the world at all. Right? So then we take our pin out, and you can tell you haven't caught it when you can move your ribbon back and forth, right? And then I'm gonna fold it in half, right sides together, like this. And then I'm gonna pile them up like this for our next batch sewing step. Okay, and here is one where I don't have any raw edges inside. So this is that kind of, make it a little bit neater, even though I haven't pressed this fabric, so you're not gonna believe me that I make things neat. But anyway, so I did the thing where I rolled this over twice and encapsulated that raw edge. So I'm gonna do the same thing with my casing. So let me get more of this ribbon. So same thing as before. It's gonna be one hand all the way across, one hand, and trim. And then what I'm gonna do here is same, except instead of just doing that, I am gonna fold it over a little bit more and do that, okay? So I've got my raw edge inside and I'm gonna be sewing along this fold just like I did over here. So I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm not like, you could come up with a measurement that you want this to be, but really a finger, if you're using a ribbon as thin as that, is fine. So I'm backstitch at the end, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I want my ribbon not to move while I'm sewing and to just be sort of stuck where it is. So just one little pin, and then I'm going to continue with this. It's a tiny bit more fiddly, but it's the same basic thing. You just put that raw edge under and go. Is it a little bit bigger than my finger? Fab, we're good to go. And then you just adjust as you go. So I'm going to do it all the way to the end here. I don't know if you can see this. There, I've got it kind of folded at the end, and then I'm going to pull it taut towards me. And that does make it easier to just keep the same sort of rough distance here. And of course, if you want to, you could pin all the way along here and make sure and pin your ribbon right out the way. Same idea, just a little more fiddling, and I don't do all that fiddling, so. And then a back stitch at the end. Right, and then same as before. So this is what it looks like on the front for now, but we're not ready for that yet. So we are going to put it right sides together, take that pin out, because once it's folded like this, it's not really gonna come out. It'll be fine. And we're gonna stack them up like this, and we'll finish in a minute.
Okay, so this is the version where I've just done raw edges. I'm not flipping very much over. It's right sides together with the drawstrings off to the right, under the throat. So I'm gonna start where this stitch line meets this stitch line. So I'm not catching my ribbons, but I'm kind of securing the casing together a little bit there. Then I backstitch. Again, not so far that we're hitting the ribbon. And then we're just going down almost to the end. I'm stopping about 2 fingers from the end. I'm sewing all the way along that previous stitch line from the sides of the bags. Okay, so there's my 2 fingers. I am going to show you a version of this where we're hiding all the raw edges. That's not what I'm doing right now, but even when I'm not hiding the raw edges inside the bag, I still like to fold this up. So I feel like it guards against the seam at the bottom of the bag ripping. If you just sewed along here and you maybe put like, I don't know, a heavy candle, something, I'm not sure, a pet rock. I don't know what you're gifting people, but if you put something a little heavy, you don't want this seam to kind of split. So what I do is fold up like this. I've still got my raw edge, but like there's no way anything's gonna give at the bottom, no matter how heavy my present. This is absolutely optional. You don't have to do this. You could just stitch all the way down here, 1/4 inch, stitch along here, and then you're done, because this is already either sewn because it was 2 pieces or folded because it was 1. So we don't need to stitch up the other side. But anyway, I'm going to do this because I like to. And I just stitch down until I'm on there. And then I'm going to rotate, do a teensy weensy back stitch, and then just go along here. So I'm kind of basically going 1/4 inch from the raw edge is what I'm doing. And then when I get to the end, back stitch, and we're done. Okay. And I don't clip the corners. You could, but I really don't think it makes much difference to the bag. So I would just push that corner till it looks kind of like that. And that one. And then we have a finished bag. Put our present in, pull our drawstring, and do a little bow at the top, and we're done. So easy as that. Okay, here is the one where I have been turning all the way under to hide all the raw edges. So the raw edge is tucked in there, and it's tucked in there. So I'm gonna do the same thing at the bottom of this one, but everything else is the same. Little back stitch. So I'm just crossing this stitch line on the casing. And then I'm gonna go all the way down and stop just before, so I've got room to turn. Now, what I'm gonna do, so you can see I've not cut this super perfectly. I've got this a little bit longer. So that's the other thing this helps with. If you fold it up, either 1 time or 2 times, it hides that, whether you're doing the raw edge version or not. But since I'm wanting to hide the raw edge, I put the raw edge in first, and then fold it like that. That's it. Exactly the same as we were doing on the casing and on the sides. Obviously, we want to try and get it somewhat the same. Like, I'm just eyeballing that. Doesn't that look kind of like it's the same width on this side as this? And I'm not going to do any more measuring than that. That's totally fine. And I'm just holding this and then going down on the presser foot. I'm getting on to where it's folded, turning, tiny back stitch, and then I'm going to come and finish up. And because it's folded, I'm going kind of as close to the fold as opposed to like giving myself a 1/4 inch that way. And then at the end, little back stitch, and we're done. Same. So again, I'm not clipping corners. I'm just gonna push it and push it, and there we go. And so that is the one where when you look inside, you don't see any raw seams. And this one, pretty much similar, but inside there's a little bit of rawness. So you just choose what suits you. And either way, oops, fingers in the way, drawstring works, and you get a quick and pretty gift bag. In total, over 2 days of batch sewing off and on in little snippets of time, I made 64 drawstring gift bags. It was super easy peasy even to make this many, so if you're batch sewing 10 or 20, imagine how quickly you can get through them. I already had an opportunity to use one of the bags at the weekend for a friend's birthday, and now I've got a good old stash for whatever I need it for in the coming year. So Christmas Eve is going to be a cinch for me this year. I'm definitely going to have a bag that fits every present. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it makes your Christmas wrapping that much quicker, maybe bust your stash a little bit. If you like this tutorial and you're not subscribed to the channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, maybe share the tutorial with a friend. That really helps the channel out too. And if you're looking for your quilty community, do check out the link in the video description. I have a no judgment, beginner friendly scrap club over on Patreon. We meet on Zoom. We do lots of collaborative things together, including group quilts, mini quilt swaps, and it's just a lovely bunch of non-judgmental, creative folk. And we'd love to see you there too. So I'm gonna go and find a good box to store these in where I can just pick one out whenever I want. And I hope you'll have fun sewing your own bags as well. Thanks so much for spending time with me. Bye.